Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast for Wednesday, August 14th. We're talking all things soccer with Nick Borrman. He's been good in soccer. Nick, welcome into the pod. How are you?
Hey, Drew. I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Not as good as you in terms of wins and losses. You're, 21-10 since the beginning of Euro soccer season, right?
Yeah, it's been a good start. EPL's got their first week under the belt. We got two other big ones, La Liga, Bundesliga, starting this weekend, and some of the smaller leagues have been going now for this will be their third week. So, yeah, it's been a great start, and obviously hope to continue that.
Good, man. Yeah, hopefully you can keep it up. We got Andrew giving out free plays all year long, so all summer long here into what we would call football season. Free plays in the English Championship League, I believe. 5-2 year to date out the gate, just 2-1 last week. So are you posting plays on that this week, next week, just what going forward, Nick?
Yeah, so it's the second tier behind the Premier League of England, so it's still a big league in Europe. But basically, I'm going to post all plays I make for the league the entire season for free on the site. So I got two up right now for this Saturday. I may add one or two more as I keep looking into the games before there. So yeah, any day a week you can check the site. As I make them, I'll add them right on there, every single play for the league all year long, just to kind of give a taste to some of the guys out there of what I do and how I go through leagues. But yeah, I'm excited about it. It's been a good start so far, and another one I hope to continue going strong throughout the season.
Absolutely, man. Hopefully keeping it up. And yeah, check it out on his handicapper page on sportsmemo.com. All the free plays in the English Championship League. And he's also got a bunch of service plays up there. You can get his full soccer season up there at sportsmemo.com. We're going to be breaking down tonight's MLS matchups. Also look at the weekend slate in European soccer. We got EPL and La Liga action. But let's start off in the MLS, Nick. We got Colorado at Minnesota. Minnesota minus a goal favorites here. Total of 3.
Yeah, Minnesota, they've been a force at home all year. They have just one loss on the season, plus they've actually given up the least goals at home in the entire conference, just 9 goals through 12 games. So they've been really, really strong there. They were on an 11-game unbeaten run as well just last weekend before they finally lost. There was eight goals scored in a loss 3-5 at Dallas. So that was a shootout type of a game you don't see too often. But they've been playing really well. They were a team we previewed this year, beginning of the season, go back to March. That I actually projected to be much improved this year. They were a non-playoff team this year, and right now they're sitting with a good chance to be number 2 in the conference behind LAFC. So they've had a great run right now. Colorado, they have won their last 2 games at home. They beat Montreal 6-3, another big score line you don't see much, and they beat San Jose last weekend 2-1, which was a great win, as San Jose is probably the best team in the West, along with Minnesota and LAFC. So that was a good win for them. But before that, they were winless in their 4 previous games, all against playoff teams like Minnesota is. I especially like this game, a midweek game on the road. We've talked, plenty of weeks throughout the summer about how hard it is to travel in the MLS in general. Throw in the fact that it's midweek and it's short rest, it makes it even harder. I went back and looked. I was interested as I was kind of researching, what are the results right now of short rest travel in the MLS this year? And it's pretty bad. The road teams have just 9 wins in 49 games on short rest midweek travel this year. So that's obviously a big, a decent sized sample of almost 50 games and only 9 wins, 20%. So that's pretty big, number you can kind of try to jump on. Here at -1. It would take obviously 2 goals to cover the line. So I don't think there's a ton of value, but I do like Minnesota. I think they're going to probably win this one rather easily. I think it warrants a play, but I don't think there's a ton of value just because I think Colorado, they're scrappy. I think they can keep it close and maybe keep it to a 1 goal. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. Minnesota has had plenty of games where they've gone off and scored 3-4 goals at home. So I do like Minnesota to win. I think it's safe to throw a few dollars on them because even if they do win and it's just by 1 goal, you're just going to push the bet. So Minnesota here in this one, Drew.
All right, next second game up, we got Seattle at Real Salt Lake, minus half a goal with a pretty good home field advantage, at least I've heard. Real Salt Lake City, I know the Utah Utes usually play pretty well at home. We got total of 2.75, man.
Yeah, you're right on the money. We've talked about this one too a couple weeks, and yes, Salt Lake is one of those areas in any sport where the altitude definitely comes into play. This year they're 8-1-2. That's 8 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses at home this year with a +12 differential. They've beat good teams. They beat New York City FC. They beat Philly, Atlanta, Toronto, all at home, and those are all really good teams. So they do perform very, very well at home. Historically, between these teams, I was surprised to find out that Salt Lake has actually won 7 straight matches at home against Seattle. And Seattle's been a good team over the years, so I was really surprised to see that. And again, just something else to further dive into the fact of how strong this home field advantage is. In Salt Lake, again, we'll throw in short rest on this as well, and it just makes it even more of a reason that you think that they should be able to cover this one. Seattle, they played last weekend. They drew 3-3 against New England, which was a tough game. I mean, they had the lead twice in that game. They gave it up both times. I was watching that game. I had Seattle. I was very disappointed when New England scored another goal late in that game to tie it up. So I was definitely watching that one from the start. But it was a tough physical game, and having a short turnaround to come back in here, I think they're going to be tired. And Salt Lake is not an easy place to play. So I think we're going to see a Salt Lake win here. I think there's good value at just having in this at a half a goal right now. So whether it's the 3-way on the money line or you take a -0.5, the bet is the same. But do shop between those two for listeners out there that haven't talked to about it before. For whatever reason, you'll see sometimes 2, 3, 4 cents difference on the money line play, which is the 3-way line play, versus the handicap spread of -0.5, even though the bet's the exact same. So take whichever one's better there on the price, but either way, it's good to play this one, Drew.
All right, Nick. Next game up, we got Dallas at LA Galaxy. LA Galaxy -0.5 a goal here, and the highest total on the card that I'm seeing, 3.25 in the MLS.
Yeah, I like the under here. Just to be quick and blunt about it, the total you see, I think, inflated often when you get LA Galaxy. They're kind of a hit or miss type of a team. They either score 3 goals as nobody can stop Zlatan, or they lock him up and they score no goals. So my model's looking at this as pretty good value on the under. Dallas, we just talked about, they beat Minnesota 5-3 last weekend, but that's another factor I think that's kind of inflating this number a little bit. Even with that over, they have just a 5-20 over-under record against this number this year. So obviously a very big under team all year, and they average a conference low 2.7 goals per game. On the road is even lower. They're just 2-10 over under this year. So definitely an under team. And LA, as much as you hear about Zlatan and the fact that they can go off, they actually have just a 6-18 over under record against this number, including just 3-9 at home. They're improved last year on the defensive side, which has certainly helped those numbers. I just don't think – I think Dallas, they've played good defensively all year, and I think they're going to come out with a game plan to try to lock Ibrahimovic down and, take the let someone else beat us type of approach. So I think they'll be successful in that, even on the road here. I like the under. I think there's good value here in this one, Drew.
All right, Nick, we got one more MLS, and we're going to head over across the pond to Europe soccer here, but do want to throw out the coupon code for the podcast. It's EPL, just the 3 letters, all in a row, EPL coupon code for $100 off his full season soccer package. And by the way, that includes more than just the EPL. Just trying to make it easy to remember the coupon code here. You get all the European leagues, you get his MLS, you get all the soccer he'll release all season long for just $499, less than a nickel here, and he's been good. So check it out, Nick Borrman's handicapper page on sportsmemo.com. Early bird soccer season package. We already discounted it, and with this coupon code EPL at checkout, you'll take another $100 off. One more MLS game here. We got, Nick, Chicago at Portland. Portland a -3/4 favorite goal, and total of 3 here.
Yeah, my favorite MLS betting trend of the year this year has been fade Chicago on the road. Even the worst team in the league, as far as the standings goes, which is Cincinnati, has more road wins than Chicago this year. They have just 1 win, and oddly enough, it came in their very last game they played. They won 1-0 at Houston, Houston has been really, really struggling as well. They scored a league-low 9 goals in 12 road matches this year. So Chicago is just a team that just cannot travel. And then when you watch them at home, they look like a completely different team. So they're probably the epitome of home versus away, results in the MLS, even though, it's there for everybody. They're probably the biggest dispersion between the two. Portland, they've been playing very well. They had a slow start to the season. We talked about the fact that they had their first 12 matches of the year on the road as they were finishing some renovations to their stadium. So they're happy now as they're kind of getting into a home-heavy type of part of their schedule. They lost their very first home game of the season, which was against LAFC, the best team in the league. But since then, they've gone unbeaten in 7 matches with 5 wins and 2 draws. And that includes a 3-1 win over Vancouver last weekend and a 4-0 win over the Galaxy before that. So they've been scoring and blowing teams out the last couple of games. So one more reason I like Portland here is the fact that Chicago has never won in Portland. They've played 5 times all time going there, and they've never won. It's obviously not an easy trip to make midweek going from Chicago all the way across the country west. So a lot of factors here involved. But bottom line is Chicago can't travel. I think this line's probably going to move to 1 by kickoff. I doubt it'll get higher than that, but I would jump on this now at minus 0.75. That way, at least you're covering and getting a half win if they only win by 1. But I love Portland here at home in this one, Drew.
And just kind of like a glimpse view handicapping of this, when you say midweek game at Portland, does that mean they have a game on Saturday they have to prepare for too, or is this this week's game?
Yep, nope, that's it. This is this midweek. There's only 5 games this week, midweek, and all teams that are playing in the games had a game last weekend and a game this weekend. So yeah, it's a tough one. And what you'll see sometimes, this one doesn't. This one does get into that. Is you'll see. So this is Eastern Conference versus Western Conference. What you'll see is that one of the teams may, and usually it's the road team, may just kind of say screw it, and what they need to focus on is their conference and gaining points in their conference against other teams, and they may rest guys because the game coming up Saturday may be more important and they're playing somebody right on the cusp of playoffs who they're trying to beat. So that game could be considered more important, those points worth more than trying to go in here at Portland, tire your team out and then have not much of a chance in either type of a game. So the lineups won't be announced until later, but you'll see that a lot in these type of games. But yeah, to answer your question, it's a midweek game and they got to turn right back around and play again this weekend.
Man, in that kind of situation, would it be like, if Chicago had a home game, would it just be like, oh man, just leave the best players behind? Or would they actually make the trip and then get back on the plane and come back and play minutes, or just totally stay behind and rest?
Great question. They will stay home. I had a play actually not too long ago. I put a top play 5% out on Portland, ironically, who we're talking about in this game, and they did that to me. I made the play where the line was great, and it was a day or two ahead of time, and then of course they ended up doing that. It was a game that wasn't expected for them to do that.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, they did it, and they had their top 4 guys, their entire front line sit, and it was like literally none of the guys that played had more than 100 combined minutes all year long. So you never know sometimes, and that was a game that was unexpected to do it. But this one, I'm expecting Chicago to leave some guys at home. But yeah, they don't travel with them because again, that's just more reason to get them tired out. They can stay at home, be comfortable, get practice in, and be ready for that next game.
Okay, so my follow-up question would be to this, like in college football, college basketball, sports where I've had success, man, some things I try to do is follow their beat writers. Nobody knows these teams better than beat writers, and they'll take like pictures of them getting on the plane and stuff, and a lot of times the good ones will write in there on Twitter like, XYZ player, one of the starters, didn't make the trip. And if you get that information, a lot of times it's before the odds makers, and you can jump on that, and that's a real great, that's like pretty much one of the best ways I've had success in sports betting. Is that possible to do that in the MLS? Do they have beat writers that follow the team day in, day out?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's an awesome point, and for all listeners out there to take that into account and try to find teams that whether you like or it's just a couple teams you want to follow throughout the year, but you can find those guys that are out there. A lot of their own. It's a matter of when the information becomes available, because even the teams themselves will announce ahead of time who is and who isn't making the trip, as far as just even a day before the game. But what you won't see is if they are making the trip, you won't see lineups until about an hour before the game. But yeah, you can definitely find the beat writers. I don't know if they're I couldn't compare it to college football, for example, as far as how many are out there and how I don't know how in depth they maybe be with some of the information they put out there, because I don't do a lot of the college football, but they're definitely out there. They definitely exist, and it just takes a little digging to try to find those guys. But definitely a good point you bring up for sure.
Yeah, I'm just thinking off the top of my head that could be a beatable thing here in the MLS. But we got La Liga we got to get into, and that's Friday night slate. We got Barcelona minus 3/4 goal, so a road favorite here at Bilbao, I believe. I might be pronouncing that wrong, Nick. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But total at 2.75, man.
No, you got that right. And real quick with La Liga coming in, this is Spain we're talking about. The two teams everybody knows here is Barcelona and Real Madrid, who we're gonna preview the two games for them this week. They're the two teams that have won the league. You can throw in Atletico Madrid as well over the last 20 years. It's just been predominantly these two. And again, it's going to come down to, in my opinion, it's Barcelona's league to lose again this year. Madrid had a down year last year. We'll talk about them a little bit in the next game. But Barcelona, they had a good year last year, but they're going to be better this year. They're trying to get. I'm watching the news really closely, and if you're following anything soccer, that's just been talked about for the last 2 weeks, of the fact that they're trying to get Neymar back, and it's more that Neymar doesn't really want to play for PSG, which is in France. If 2 years ago PSG bought Neymar in the record transfer in soccer at the time, and now it's trying to 2 years back, trying to come back and play back for Barcelona. So it'll be interesting to see if that gets done. Whether it does or doesn't won't affect this game, because he won't be back and ready to play. But in order to do so, there was a lot of cash involved in the first time, and now they're talking about there'd be a lot of players they'd have to send, because they don't want to throw away that kind of cash going back. So it'll be interesting to see if he does come back, who they exactly have to unload, because Barcelona, like a lot of the top teams in Europe, the reason they're top is because they're so deep. Yeah, they got a ton of the big name guys right up front, but it's when somebody gets injured or when they go through these tough schedules with Champions League play, league play, and then even domestic cup play, they can rotate their squads and still put out really, really strong teams. So what'll be interesting is if they want to get Neymar back, who they're going to have to get up. So I'm going to have to pay attention to that over the next couple of days, because I think something's going to happen sooner rather than later. But in this one, you got Barcelona. You got Lionel Messi, obviously one of the best players, if not the best player in the world. So anytime you have him on the field, it's just you're at an advantage, no matter what. But what I would warn bettors here on this one is there's a reason you're seeing this line less than a goal. Because at quick glance you go, oh, Barcelona, I know Barcelona. They got Messi. They got a lot of good players. They're one of the best teams in the world, and they're only favored by less than a goal in this game. Well, Bilbao is a solid team. They know how to play Barcelona very, very well. Last year, you'll be surprised to know that they actually drew both games against Barcelona. Barcelona is clearly the better team when you put them on paper, but in a close game, which I expect this to be, a 1-goal win for Barcelona, you're talking about risking a full bet to win half of your bet at this current line. And I think if Barcelona does win this game, I wouldn't be surprised to see a draw. I don't think they'll lose, but if they do win this game, I don't necessarily see them going in here and blowing them out and winning by 2 or 3 goals. So I don't think there's a ton of value here in the spread. But I do think there's actually some value on the under, which may be surprising as well, because another situation where you think of Barcelona as being a high-scoring team, which they can be. But the reason they're one of the better teams is usually because they're very, very possession-based, and they limit the opponent better than anybody as far as giving the opposition chances. So you'll see a lot of their games 2-0, 3-0, but the point being that they're holding a lot of teams scoreless. So my model suggesting there's a good chance to see an under here. The teams have played to 4 straight unders over the last 2 seasons, so all 4 meetings have played to under this number. And I think, honestly, we may see this total creep up to 3 as it gets closer to game time. You'll see a lot of public money. Barcelona is one of the public-heavy teams you'll see probably the number move up because people love to watch those overs and think they're going to score a lot. So I'm going to wait and see if any threes do start to show out there, and I'm definitely going to jump on the under at that point. But even at this number, Drew, I do think there's good value on the under, so that's the way I'm looking to play this one.
All right, Nick, we got La Liga on Saturday, and we're talking with Nick Borrman at Borrman00 on Twitter. We got Real Madrid minus 3/4 goal or minus a full goal at Celt Vigo. Total of 3.25, man.
Yeah, Real Madrid is probably going to be one of the most interesting teams this year. They struggled last year. They went through 3 managers in the wake of losing Ronaldo, who went to Juventus last year. So, they were in I don't want to say an identity crisis, but they were definitely in a transitional stage where, they lost their named attacker up front. They didn't have that go-to type of a guy. They still had a deep roster with a ton of top-tier talent, but their coaching issues and manager issues just weren't able to kind of put them in the right setup, because when they won the Champions League 2 years ago, it was with Ronaldo and their manager, Zinedine Zidane, who left after the season as well. So you had both your manager and your star attacker leave after what was 3 straight Champions League titles. And they couldn't get any momentum. They couldn't find lineups that worked last year. And so this year they went out and they've done a lot in the transfer market. They signed Eden Hazard from Chelsea, who's been their primary striker for years. So they're looking at him to hopefully replace Ronaldo, which of course, you really can't replace the guy, but he should be a guy that can go in and fill a good amount of those shoes. They have Luka Jovic from Frankfurt, who's a young talent, really had a breakout season last year from him. Both of those guys are excellent up front. They also signed a young kid named Takefusa Kubo, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's from Japan, but really what you got to know about him is he's dubbed the Japanese Messi. He's just 18 years old. There's a ton of hype around the kid, so they're signed him to get him some time. They'll probably keep him on their B team at least for a little bit to get him some reps before maybe joining the big team a little bit later in the season. And they also have another young superstar, Junior Vinicius, who last year, he's 19 years old, last year just came on really, really strong. He got inserted in the lineup about halfway through the season when they finally got Zinedine Zidane back as manager, because he's back now after half a season last year of being gone. And then they still have one of the best midfields in the world, Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Marco Asensio, Isco, and they still have Karim Benzema up front. So I think their biggest issue is going to be who to play and where to play them. It's kind of like a roster that has too many puzzle pieces, and the puzzle doesn't quite hold all of them at one time. But they're built for deep runs in the Champions League and domestic league because they can rotate a lot of players. But in any one game, I don't know yet. And watching their preseason games, it doesn't look like they've settled on one particular lineup yet. So that may be a little bit of the early season struggles with them, but I think they're going to be much improved. I don't think they'll necessarily be able to catch Barcelona this year, but I think the race will be much closer. Last year, Barcelona had this thing won with 7 weeks to go, so it wasn't even much of a race. So I think it'll be closer this year. Celta Vigo, they were awful last year. They were saved, basically. They were one spot above being relegated last year, and Madrid, even with all their struggles last year, beat them 2-0 at home and 4-2 on the road. And I think we're going to see a rather easy win here for Madrid as well. Last night, as I was working on this, some of my notes here on the game, they were at minus 0.75. I've seen a lot of books now start to move them to -1. So if you can get minus 0.75, that's great. If you can't, you can always make that line. You can take half of your bet on -1 and the other half on the money line or three-way line, as it's essentially doing the same thing as taking minus 0.75. So I do like Madrid to win this game. I think they should do it rather easily, and I would recommend doing the minus 0.75 line just to ensure you still cash something when if they win just by 1. But I like Madrid here in this one, Drew.
Good stuff, Nick. We got one more game here, EPL on Saturday. We're also going to touch on some golf to close out the podcast. But guys, reminder, the podcast coupon code EPL, just EPL at checkout, takes $100 off his early bird soccer season package. Gives you the whole soccer season, not just the EPL. Every soccer pick he releases throughout the season for only $499. That's $100 off with this coupon code EPL at checkout for his early bird soccer season package. Let's talk the EPL on Saturday. Tottenham at Man City. Man City minus a goal and a half. Total of 3.25, Nick.
Yeah, so this line just kind of shows, how much difference there is in the top two clubs in the league, which is City and Liverpool versus everyone else. Tottenham lost and was in the finals of the Champions League last year, so we're not talking about a bad team by any means, and they're still, getting a goal and a half against City. So it just shows the disparity right now, of the top two teams in the league. Tottenham last week, they did not look good for the first 2/3 of the game against Aston Villa. They were trailed 0-1, and really until they had Christian Eriksen come in that game in the 64th minute, they couldn't get anything going. And as soon as he came in, they completely changed and scored 3 goals late in the game to end up winning 3-1 and covering as goal and a half favorites. So I don't know I'm not sure why they didn't have him start. Nothing's really been said about it. But I expect, based on the performance of when he came in for them, that he'll definitely be starting in this game, and they absolutely need him. City, they blew out West Ham 5-0 on the road, which was great. That was my 5% top play last week, so obviously very happy to see them take out West Ham, the Hammers, pretty easily. The game was really never in doubt. They controlled right from the beginning, and they created all the chances in that game, and they're going to be like that all year long. Tottenham, though, has these two teams know each other well. They're two of the better teams in the league, and as much as this game will be decided by the players on the field, I think a lot of what's going to happen and how this game plays out is the two managers. These guys know each other very, very well. They play each other very, very tough. Last year, Tottenham actually knocked out City in the Champions League in the quarterfinals to move on and eventually make it to the final. City won 4-3 at home, but then lost 0-1 at Tottenham. So if you do the math there, it was 4-4, and we've talked about that before, where the winner moved on by away goals. So Tottenham scored more goals on the way. So even though they were tied, Tottenham ended up moving on. I know. Yeah, it's a terrible way. I wish they would change. But for whatever reason, that's the way it is, and that's how they won that. And then both Premier League meetings ended up City won 1-0 in both games. So in 3 meetings out of the 4 meetings last year, it was a 1-0 scoreline either way. So these teams know each other well. They know how both coaches like to line each other up. They know the tactics on the field. And, I think City's probably going to end up winning the game. At home, they're just tough to beat. I don't like laying the full goal and a half. I don't think there's a lot of value there. But instead, I do like the under. I think the defense will be able to hold each other down. I think the tactics by the managers will be very much that of how to possess the ball, look for counters, look for your chances. Don't take unnecessary chances, because if you do from either team, you can get caught on the counter. So I think we're going to see a slower pace, lower scoring game here. And I do like the under. It's always scary to take City on the under, but I do like the under here, 3.25. I think there's good value in that. So as long as they get Eriksen to play this game and start this game for Tottenham, I think that's going to be the way to play this one.
Good stuff, Nick. And let's finish it up with some golf talk. What we got this week's golf tournament, the BMW Championship, a country club just outside of Chicago. What are you thinking this weekend in golf?
Yeah, so this is the second tournament of the playoffs. So there's 3 tournaments this year. How it works is last week was the top 125. This week is down to only the top 70, so there will not be a cut this week. And then next week, the Tour Championship is only the top 30 guys. So you got two kind of tournaments going on this week. You got guys that are in the top 10 and really just trying to win the tournament. And then you have guys that are somewhere between place in the FedEx Cup standing, somewhere between place 30 and place 70 that are just trying to play their way in to the Tour Championship next week. So it's kind of neat to see where you stand and what the guys are really going to be trying to do. And I'm still working on my head-to-head matchups all the way through. But what I'm trying to find is who are guys that, what do they have to play for? Are guys right on that cut line of in place 31, 32, 33, and every stroke all the way through the entire tournament is going to end up mattering, or is it guys that are maybe they're safely in for the Tour Championship, they're maybe 10 through 15, somewhere in that neighborhood, and if they're not going to win the tournament, they may fade a little bit down the stretch because not every shot's going to matter as much as it is for the other guys. So working through that, but there's 2 different storylines for this week for sure. Some guys I do like to finish high this week. Justin Thomas, top 10. He's at plus 125. His last 4 starts, tied for 9th, tied for 11th, tied for 12th, tied for 12th. So he's right there. And with a smaller field this week, I think he could crack that top 10. John Rahm, he's plus 125 as well. His worst finish in his last 6 starts was a tied for 11th at the Open. Otherwise, he's been top 10s and on the other 5 starts. So he has been one of the hottest players out there, and he led in the last round last Sunday before fading, and I think he fell, lost by 2 shots there. And then you have Justin Rose. He's anywhere from plus 135 to plus 140. He finished tied for 10th last week and has 5 straight top 20 finishes. And then he won the FedEx Cup last year, so he knows how to finish really well. So all 3 of those guys, I think, should have good weeks this week, and I think at the plus numbers that they are, give good value to have a top 10 finish. And one head-to-head matchup I'll throw out there for the listeners for free here this week is Billy Horschel. He's plus 115 over Jason Day. So that's a head-to-head matchup on the total score of the tournament over all 4 days. Day has been inconsistent all year. He missed the cut last week. He just split with his caddy, Stevie Williams, after only 6 tournaments. So there's a lot to be said when you're changing caddies a lot. You got to be comfortable with the guy that's giving you all your information out on the golf course. So I think there's going to be some struggles with him this week. He's missed 2 of the last 4 cuts, and he's had no finish better than a top 40. So not in good shape right now. Horschel, he finished tied for 21st last week after 1 over start, so that was a good comeback to get him tied for 21st, and he had 2 top 10s before that, and he's been really, really, really solid all year. So I think there's awesome value in Billy Horschel, plus 115 right now over Jason Day as a free head-to-head play this week, Drew.
Wow, man, I like what you did there with that head-to-head play, and what if both of them miss the cut?
All right, so good question. So if one makes the cut, one doesn't, obviously the person that makes the cut, doesn't matter what happens the next 2 days, will win. If they both miss the cut, it's whoever has that better score at the cut. So if somebody missed the cut by 1 shot versus 2 shots, the guy that only missed it by 1 shot will win the head-to-head matchup. So good question.
And what if they tie, like they both missed the cut and they're both 1 over? It's just a push on your bet.
Yep. Just a void push on the bet. Yep, you got it.
Good stuff, Nick. Man, good pod here. Guys, coupon code EPL at checkout for his early bird soccer season package. You get $100 off with that coupon code EPL. Nick Borrman at Borman00 on Twitter. You can follow me at Drew Martin Bets on Twitter. Feel free to reach out, answer